Sweet. So everybody's kind of back from their vacations. Just wanted to do a check-in. I labeled this like a demo. It doesn't necessarily have to be like this robust demo. I just wanted to see where things were at and talk through where different concepts are landing. I worked on some stuff too while Sasha was on vacation, so just wanted to share some of that and yeah, go from there. So Sasha, Jeremy, and I more or less have been going back and forth on a feature branch separate from yours, Tomas. And we spent most of our time just adding visual polish to the sidebar, trying out different font weights, trying out different spacing, visualization, moving things around just a little bit. Um, Last week, I tried to take what Sasha did in Arc Boost several weeks ago and embed some of that CSS and get some of the stacking and z-indexing playing a little bit better with like the flyout menus. So I was able to somewhat simulate, I feel like the canvas and panel concept without being able to open Duo, just to kind of get that feel. And Sasha had made the suggestion to keep that separate from his branch, which is totally fine. Um, but I feel like this kind of gives us a good feel of what it would be like if we kept the sidebar, but we still went forward with like a canvas panel type of interaction. And yeah, I have been crafting a kind of guide of how I might approach testing this. So I'm thinking about taking it to some PMs, engineers, and maybe even some customer facing team members, building out like the tasks I'll take them through, have like an evaluation guide so they can weigh the different prototypes. By prototypes, I just mean like our feature branch. So I want to try and give as realistic of a simulation as possible, but understanding that since we're just keeping this within testing and GDK, I can't really ask anybody outside of GitLab because they're just not going to be able to figure out how to download GDK, get that running, get a license set up, and then have everything going. Like I think I can ask another engineer, like, hey, can you try this out? Tell me what you think async. But yeah, if there's anything you want to talk about, like in this specific feature branch, like if you want me to highlight anything, happy to do that. Or if you're curious, like what we did in a specific area, illustrate that too.
Uh, uh, yeah. So I'm sorry. This is my first meeting today, so I'm gonna be probably stuttering a little bit.
Oh, me
I'm
too. I just got my coffee. I was just trying to feed my kid breakfast, so it's Monday. It's cool. Don't worry about it.
there is so I noticed as I'm working on this that there's like now three or maybe four like a slightly different visuals for this like a new layout.
Okay.
So I am a little bit confused, like now looking at your thing and looking at my thing.
Yeah.
If we actually know or like what what is sort of like the thing that we are shooting for, because
Yeah.
I mean, they are all very similar, but there are like subtle differences in the layout, and that's still really confusing for me. Like for example, your
Yeah, no
thing doesn't
worries.
have the footer at all. Is that on
Yes.
purpose or is it just not done yet?
Yes, on purpose. So I was sending you on like a different task with what Sasha and Jeremy and I are working on was to try to see what we could do if we just kept the super sidebar as is and kind of change a little bit of the Chrome around it, as opposed to re-architecting, like moving things out of there. So let me get my screen share switch to Figma, which is why I only shared one with you because I didn't want to like confuse the concepts. What I'm thinking would be a meaningful delta to test with like team members is like what you get today out of our navigation experience, and this is probably more or less how far we could take it with just some visual refinement. But I also want to
Hmm.
present the alternative, which is what I was asking you to help us construct. Was like if we break items out of the sidebar into like a top area and a bottom, reconstruct a few things. Does that better layer the platform in a way that makes users more efficient or feel like they can have a better bearing on where they're at in the platform? And I think if we compare and contrast the two, we can look at it and say, okay, with all honesty, maybe this one is slightly better, but it's not worth like the engineering investment. Or we go, no, this is like a meaningful difference. And even though it's going to be harder, we might want to make that bigger leap. Um, or yeah, we look at it and we go, no, actually, we don't like it at all. Now that we've like tried it out, we thought that we'd like to go back to a hybrid approach, but turns out not really. So that was what I was trying to kind of get at was having you like start to break out those pieces. And I thought that was harder for us to do because all we did was mostly just play around with CSS. There wasn't a ton of stuff besides like moving a couple things here and there between view files, but it wasn't anything nuts. Yours was definitely like the bigger ask of like trying to segment out items and deal with
Gotcha,
all that.
gotcha,
So
gotcha.
I hope that
Yeah,
makes it
yeah.
clear.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm looking at back to the whole Figma, and so what you showed me as your thing is more alongside of the minim or small, like the small thread or whatever column in there, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So we were more focused on what potentially could we ship right now to improve like what we have in the product today, right?
Right.
So
Right.
like refining like the super sidebar we have with like the improvements to, you know, to make like the search stand out more, but also some of the design refinements we wanted to do to make it a bit more dense, but also a bit more modern from the aesthetic point of view.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
the task Austin gave you is like the whole vision, which is like the large scale factor.
Yeah, yeah, the whole
So
layout
yeah,
redesign.
yeah,
Got
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And we could, it's not that we like, let's say we end up going with whatever you're building, Tomas. It's not that we couldn't carry over some of these visual refinements. Like let's say we wanted to drop the font size and bring in semi-bold. We can definitely do that. But I think we just wanted to get the comparison to keeping our structure as is with some visual refinement more or less, or restructuring a bit more with that layer of visual refinement too to help emphasize the different aspects of the UI elements.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I totally understand that there are going to be like at least three approaches that, like people will
Yeah,
be, basically giving the feedback, and probably like the end result is going to be some sort of compromise between the three.
right.
Luckily,
Yeah,
if everything goes well.
yeah. And I think I checked out your branch. Maybe it was on Friday. I don't know if you had not pushed up
Yeah,
any
yeah. So
recent
I
commits or
I
anything.
I I actually made a bunch of updates today. So if you guys
Okay,
want,
sweet.
I could share my screen and show you what I got.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Um,
Yes, please.
yeah, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, so I started to,
Hmm. Hmm.
make the whole layout, uh, basically have all the pieces that it's supposed to have, and kind of
Yeah,
hold together as you're like clicking throughout the various things. It's it's far from being polished in any way yet. It's more about like getting pieces into the right corners and stuff, and then
sure.
then go and polish it more. So,
Yeah.
uh, how do I get? Oh, sorry, there's like a button in here. I think it's a Zoom thing. It says annotate, and I
Oh,
just
yeah.
keep
You can
covering.
drag that thing away.
It's like, oh, now it is. Yeah, perfect. So there's the button. Doesn't work now, but it worked a little while ago. So yeah, so this is hiding
Okay.
already when the
Yeah,
button works, and yeah, this works too, obviously, but it still is not rounded enough and doesn't have the icons around. But uh it's built in a way now that I can just throw the icons
hmm,
around. And I was my next big step was gonna be to break out the what's called user bar
yeah.
from the sidebar. I mean, it's
Hmm.
already missing here, but I have to make the view render in order
Yeah,
to completely cut it out and put it in the top right corner. Um, yeah, so
sweet.
this is what I have. It has the design, what is it called? The design tokens colors, so it should, when I add the profile here from the user bar,
Hmm.
it should be able to be switched to the dark mode and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
great.
the challenge here was to make the layout work on like all the pages or most of the pages. I didn't even test them all yet. I know that some of the pages were like kind of trying to shift the page to the side, or like, or trying to make it small.
Yeah.
In various, and of course, I didn't check any mobile stuff yet. So
I wouldn't worry about mobile stuff. I mean, we're gonna see people test on their desktop, and I'm putting a disclaimer in there too. Like these are like functionally supposed to illustrate a direction, not a like completeness. So the majority of the tests that I or tasks that I put in there are just moving around the platform, and like you're not testing like how do you fill out the form or actually like perform a code review. We know those things won't necessarily work perfectly, but those are the odds and ends that take a lot of time to like get cleaned up, and we don't want to spend all the time just to investigate a direction. So
yeah.
yeah, I
And
think the
then
one thing we ended up I was having to check a lot was how does the sticky header and issue and MR work? Because like occasionally it would like just be completely too far
um,
off. So that might be one area you could check. We try to get that kind of squared away so that at least like if you were scrolling an MR or an issue, then it wouldn't, be floating in the middle of the air, get caught underneath the panel.
yeah,
Just,
yeah, yeah. I was kind of fighting it too.
yeah,
For uh yeah, but it
yeah,
holds together. Yeah, and it's
yeah. I see.
but this needs to go away. This
Yeah,
guy. Yeah.
yeah. If you can contain it, I think you'll probably be fine. No, this is great. We're getting closer. I think if you can help us just get those items in the right place too, like we could also help bring some of that same visual refinement so that the two different concepts feel like they're on the same playing field in terms of visual aesthetics. But you're also welcome to steal any of the like styling that we put on like the search area or on the menu items in the sidebar.
Yeah, I actually, as I was looking at your thing, I actually really like how the sidebar is kind of like on that bottom plane, or whatever you like, the background plane.
Hmm.
That, like how, if whatever you have like in this border is kind of, like has like a little drop shadow, and it's kind of like a pushed to the front, the forward kind of plane, and then you have the header and the footer is kind of like in a background. I liked how the sidebar would stay also in the background kind of thing, and then
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah, just the page itself would be kind of like protruding up. I
Yeah.
think that looks visually interesting, but that's just me.
No, it definitely is visually interesting. At least for this concept, I was envisioning that the contextual navigation would remain like attached and on the same layer as the rest of the main panel. But I do see what you mean. The piece that I've always been kind of fighting, I wasn't sure if Sasha thought this at all. Like where the breadcrumb area was in the prototype that we were putting together. I can't decide if I want that to be attached to the main panel or like look like it's sitting on the canvas. I can't quite decide which I would prefer. I didn't have GitLab Duo running locally because my subscriptions, I think, got nuked from the customer staging, so I couldn't easily get the Duo button to appear. But that also might influence some of my decision is how much those buttons in the top right corner stand out.
It's really hard to make that work on on GDK. I think I was trying to install it
Yeah,
last week too, and buttons
yeah.
nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, if it doesn't actually work, I just want like the UI elements to render. And like I had it working, but I think they must have completely like deleted the database on staging because I don't have any more subscriptions. I had a subscription that I could add that would add GitLab Duo to my GDK, but they got rid of that. And then they also like closed my workaround, which was going to the marketing website, going to the buy button on premium, replacing the customer production string with the staging string, buying premium, upgrading it to ultimate, upgrading it to Duo Enterprise. But I don't, that buy button's gone now. Like you have to talk to sales. So
But
there's no
I,
just like buy on
on
your own. So I'm like, oh, I guess I can't do this anymore.
on GDK, at least I requested the ultimate license, and then you can like just add. There's like a what is it, like a bundler executable that you can just run,
Hmm,
and it installs it, but the button still didn't show up.
interesting. Yeah, I'm still rocking my legacy license from 2020.
How
So
is it not expired yet?
Yeah.
that was the problem with them. They never expired.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
So I still have my one from when I first onboarded in 2020. Uh, yeah, I'm probably not supposed to have it, but it's been like my fallback if I can't, like if my staging gets deleted and I need to review an MR, I'm like, well, at least I have this to fall back to.
I think you can
Anyway,
still request like how many licenses you want, like for GDK. It's not like, it costs any extra money.
it's not that it costs extra money. I think it's just like it takes extra time to like get it provisioned and like figure out where's the form. It's moved. It's now over here.
Mm.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
it's just go do the right thing. But I've just for so long been living off of what I already had that when my things get taken away, I don't notice. I'm like, oh shoot. Um, cool. Gosh, where even are we in the 18-1 milestone? Are we three
We
weeks in? 2 weeks in?
yeah, we have
1 week,
1
11 days
three,
week
left.
remaining.
1 week remaining. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't know how much more we'll probably do to the other one. I'm gonna probably work mostly this week to talk to Tina and um, other product designers around like strategizing how to go test these things. So Tomas, however far you can get this would be great. And
Yeah, so
Sasha, me can help clean up
the good thing
CSS
is
if you
that
get
I'm
tied
done
up.
to my milestone stuff, the
Okay.
other milestone stuff, or
Okay.
like
Cool.
a 90%, maybe 95. So I can focus on this lab more. I was hoping to get at least maybe 1 or 2 days completely on this
Hmm.
for this week. So yeah, I think my next thing, as I said, is going to be add the buttons, the profile and sidebar buttons
Yeah.
up here in the right corner, and then the solely biggest, I believe, thing is going to be the get the duo panel on the right side.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
kind of
If you can figure that out, that'd be really cool.
the one animated like open close kind of thing, and
Hmm.
fix this left sidebar closing and opening.
Hmm.
And then the only thing that would be left is like, polish everything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think like Austin said, right? Like for the styling for the sidebar, you potentially can just, like reuse most of the stuff we have in our draft MR.
Hmm.
And otherwise we can also take a look and, like copy over like the styles from our MR to yours. Like once you feel we can tweak the styling just a bit in the end. So,
Mm-hmm.
just feel free to let me know. I can also, have a look at this, for the fine tuning of things, like the visual end. So, I will leave it with you, but you can just reach out if you want to, then I can also take a look at that
Yeah,
whenever
yeah,
you
absolutely.
feel.
Yeah. So maybe towards the end of this week, I think you guys
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
should be able to, like, start uh tweaking this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
That sounds great.
I mean, we have a channel, right? You can just ping us and then we can take a
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
look.
yeah.
So,
No, I know.
Yep.
but this already looks great. I really
Yeah.
appreciate like the time you have invested here. So I think that would be a great showcase for
Hmm.
like the larger efforts, right? So
Yeah,
it's pretty
no, I,
cool.
I truly do think this is important. I think this the layout should be evolving towards, like, more sort of integrated look. I do think that,
Right.
like, the current state of it is kind of like uh inching closer and closer to some
Yeah,
Frankenstein style. So
yeah,
if we need to do something, and I think this is great direction,
Yeah.
especially, whatever makes the search more prominent.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely tried to be very mindful about that too, even just with keeping the sidebar as it was. I think if you do like a little squint test on it, like it does stand out more. It does have a little bit of a different interaction life to it when you play with it. Um, but yeah, I was looking at some verbatims and some recordings around people using Amazon's Q with GitLab Duo, and it's funny how much we fought over where do we put the Duo chat button, and there was just this assumption of like, oh well, if we put it in the top right corner, obviously everybody will find it, and it just illustrated that that's not always the case. Like I think there's
mm,
another level of being able to put it in the right context, being able to have the right affordance to draw the attention when it makes sense, and people could find it where they would expect. And people are like, nah, I just like they're looking at the screen like I literally don't see a duo chat button, even though there's one right in the top right corner. This duo chat. So, it's not always so easy.
Yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely.
one question, Austin. What will we do with the other MR?
The one that you've been building on,
Yeah, the one we have collaborated on. Yeah.
I think we roll back the last commit that I sent, and then I'll just push this branch to a different MR.
Okay.
Then we keep yours stable, and we could take the one that I push even farther if we wanted to.
Sure.
And so then we have like the stable thing that we might fall back to as like the smaller changes. But then like, oh wait, maybe we switch like the badge counters to just like the notification dots or whatever else we wanted to do that we felt like was like, oh, this is a larger leap. We don't know if we necessarily want to do this, but it could be interesting if we did.
Will we, now that we have like iterated on this, I mean, this is still like a draft MR. We still need to, like put everything we did in that MR behind the feature flag as well?
I don't know yet. What do you think? I mean, my gut tells me like feature flag would be safer to start with if we wanted to go that direction. But I don't know how close you would say that code is to production ready. I know the pipelines are green, but I know we still have some comments in there and some overrides that I don't necessarily know are necessary, but
yeah, no, the question is more like, like how safe this should be, right? Like I think because we have touched some a lot of different files, like
yeah,
would have a lot of code duplication if we would have a feature flag, but then on the other hand, will be way easier to revert if needed, right? So
right. You're saying if we didn't do a feature flag, then it'd be easier to revert back.
I guess so, yeah.
Or also just,
Well, not the code
turn it
part,
off on the
but just
fly.
like we can just, like undo the feature flag on the fly.
Oh, I see. If we put the feature flag in, we
if
would be
needed.
able to turn it off if
Yeah.
needed.
Because if we don't have a feature flag and we merge this, then it will be on
Yeah.
.com in a couple of hours and will be for everyone. If
Yeah.
you have a feature flag, we could just,
Right.
like target GitLab internal, for example, and, just use the UI for a milestone or so, for a while internally. And if we feel confident that this is like the intermediate step we want to do until we get to the large, then we can just release the feature flag to the wild and remove like the duplicated code down the line.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it might be interesting to also A/B test, right? Because you could just enable it for internal use only. Then we could just use for like a percentage of users, like also outside of GitLab. So you could really do some A/B testing, for example. But the question is if it's needed or not, right? Like the question is it close enough to what we have today that it's fail safe? Or because navigation is always a hot topic, as you know that. So whenever we touch something in navigation,
A lot of people will complain.
Potentially we should be ready for some harsh feedback, right? Like people are very opinionated about navigation. So
yeah, if we ignore the like canvas panel aspect of it, I think the things that would be most notable to people would be the adjustment to the user shortcuts.
Yeah, correct.
And then potentially like to administrators who probably would not ever see this change unless it stays in for a whole version, like where it's placed and styled compared to like the help menu.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like potentially people would notice like the smaller font and weight. But
No,
those things I don't
I think,
necessarily feel like are crazy,
No, it is really just like an evolution, right? It's a one iteration. I mean, like you said, right? The only thing we actually did change is like swapping the position of search with the user bar, right?
Right.
Like search is
Right.
now, but search is now emphasized quite a lot
Right.
more than before, right? It stands out
Hmm.
more. So that might be a welcome change also for Thomas' team, right?
Right.
And then the rest is just is basically just styling changes, right? Like font size, spacing, and so on. So
Right.
that shouldn't be a blocker at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, we I mean, we can take this discussion async as well. I just wanted to, get some feedback, but it's also fine to, like put this behind the feature flag to be really 100% safe. But as I mentioned, we can discuss this async as well.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I'm trying to weigh that myself. Like, do we just go ahead and just release this piece and give it a go? Do we get more eyes on it before we let it go?
Yeah,
Tough
100%.
questions
Yeah.
for the first 15 minutes of a Monday morning, but I've liked where we've kind of iterated towards. I mean, especially like the default like neutral theme is pretty like mellow. Some of the colors maybe I'm not like feeling super excited about. Like I'm just like not I'm like, oh, the green doesn't quite feel right, or maybe like the way that some of the purples, like some are a little bit stronger than others. So there's anything that I was probably going to play with more, it probably would have been just like the different hues and figuring out like do they have enough saturation in areas, and are we highlighting the right things? Which maybe Jeremy would be a good piece to get feedback on there too, because I think he probably has some stronger opinions that would be worth taking in.
Yeah, 100%.
But
While I was like the first iteration didn't have any hued backgrounds, right? We only had like the active, like the theme color was only used for the active
right, right,
um indications.
right.
That might be like an alternative, but I actually like the like the tinted versions because at least you can see some of the theming colors
Yeah,
like
yeah,
coming through. But yeah, we can get Jeremy's opinion. I mean, right now we're just using whatever values we have from the design system
right.
for
But yeah,
that
we
regard, but
bumped
we
up
can.
to like Indigo 50, which is I think still a little bit darker than like what is currently in the like nav,
Yeah,
which is a little
that.
bit lighter Indigo, which doesn't exist
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
design system. Um, but yeah, just little stuff like that. I think we could
But that might
maybe.
be that's a great point because that might be like if we proceed with that direction,
Mhm.
one of the follow-ups would be to remove the duplicated light and dark themes from like the color themes, right?
Right,
Like the
right.
indigo lights, green, like all those would not be necessary anymore. So like the
Yeah,
themes could be thinned out to indigo, blue, green,
yeah,
red, gray, standard,
yeah, yeah.
neutral.
There's like a gray and a neutral.
Yeah. So indigo light,
Um,
indigo blue, like light blue, light green, light red, light indigo. Like these
right.
could be removed. So we could
Yeah,
remove a lot of code actually.
yeah. We could.
Um,
That's. I'm sure Tomas has seen some of it, but man, is it those themes are quite the spaghetti of CSS overrides. I shouldn't say overrides. They're just
You know
like a
what?
bunch of logical
I
constructs built
actually I
into
was like
one.
a lot of in the teams because I I was so I was not gonna say anything because I didn't want to skew this discussion towards something else. But like I was playing a lot of it with the teams in the past because I created a little like a Chrome extension that was kind of doing
Hmm.
something with the themes because that's kind of like one of my big pet peeves in GitLab, and I kind of wonder what is your guys' opinion. It's not about the amount of colors, which I think, it's great. I think that, when users have like a lot of choices, I think that's always good. But what's driving me bananas is that the actual theme and the appearance, light and dark and auto, is detached from the syntax highlighting theme. Like, why is that? Like, and
Mm,
I've been talking to some what used to be Foundations team. I don't know if they are still called Foundations team. The people who, they
right.
created the initial dark mode and then the what now is called appearance. and none of them
Yeah.
has like a coherent answer or even opinion about like why is it detached from each other. And like, so I was kind of wondering, what do you guys think? Why is it like detached?
Mm.
And if it's something that you find curious or driving you crazy like me.
Yeah,
Well,
I know that there's like a user choice, right? Like there are certain users who potentially want to have like the UI in light, but like syntax highlighting in dark, in a darker theme. So, but potentially what's missing is like an auto mode for syntax highlighting, right? That you could set
yeah,
syntax highlighting also to auto, which would be the default instead of light. So, that light and dark would switch when you have it in auto. So when your GitLab application goes to dark, then the syntax highlighting by default will also go into dark, unless you set a specific syntax highlighting theme like Monokai or whatever, and then
Yeah.
it will just stay at that, right?
yeah.
But
But
there's
even
a simple
Monokai would have
solution
a
to
light and a
this.
dark mode. We just haven't implemented it, right? So yeah,
There's a simple solution that you don't really have to change anything pretty much, where you simply have two syntax highlighting themes, where one that is kind of aligned with light and one that is aligned with dark, and then when you switch it to either or you have auto, you just have already pre-selected one for the dark and one for the light.
Yeah.
yeah. But you potentially have the use case that you want to have GitLab in a light theme, but you want to have a dark theme for your
Yeah, you can still
for
do that.
your
You will have the same selection that you have right now. You just have it there twice.
as
Oh, I see what you
okay,
mean.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's I think it's also how Sasha was explaining it, just like a different
yeah.
visualization like style. Yeah, I think the simple answer is they were just never connected
I guess so. Yeah.
because they were just kind of iteratively built. Like we at some point had to just like figure out how do we get light and dark to like respond with the different navigation themes. And that was like, okay, now we got to get it to work. So that responds to based off your system settings on auto or timing. Um, yeah, I don't think we ever really got as far as like connecting the syntax aspect to it. Um, I personally, it doesn't bother me. I just run Monokai all the time. So that's just what I would prefer. But I know people have thoughts and opinions. I'm honestly kind of surprised that we don't have more syntax highlighting themes than we currently do. I'm surprised we have more navigation color themes than we do syntax highlighting themes. That part maybe surprises me.
That's true. Yeah.
Or even why can't we allow people to add new ones? Like for example, like IDEs have that, right? Like you can
Yeah.
create
Yeah.
a color palette and everybody can have their own.
Yeah, I know we ran into that a little bit of a challenge when people were trying to bring customization to the diff colors. Um, it's just hard. As soon as you start like taking syntax highlighting theme, you layer on diff colors and stuff. I think it can get to a place where it's really hard to ensure accessibility guidelines can still be met. So I think we have somewhat like a limited option set to keep the guardrails on of like, this is going to keep the product in the best state possible. Yes, you can do whatever you want in VS Code, but you also could make VS Code look completely pink, all of it. So,
But
like
that's
you
what
could
some
do,
people want.
yeah, there's somewhat of like, let's help prevent people from getting into that state. But yeah, I mean, my like long-term opinion would be like if we want GitLab to really feel like people's home that they want to work in, they should have more control over their space.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean like endless customization options, but I think it means strategically investing in the areas that care about most. And I think that's both like the
Yeah. I think
application
like
and how it feels, but also since code is such an important piece of it, I think people should also be able to influence the code
Yeah, yeah.
styling.
I mean it might be worth looking into like the VS Code themes, like how they're structured, because like generally speaking, if we would be able to support like something like that, it would actually have like it would be like a yeah, because like our implementation for like like we have VS Code also implemented in our application, right? For like the editing part,
Mm.
for file editing, right? So if you could actually set like a VS Code theme, it would change like the theme of your IDE, like web IDE. And if you could just use like the data to actually also use that for like the all the other bits and pieces where we style code in our UI, that would be cool. So that you only have like one syntax highlighting for everything. So it would, because currently you can have two different ones, which is even weirder, right? Like the web IDE might have a different syntax highlighting than like all your other code snippets you see, you know, in MRs and other bits and pieces. So if you could set it to that one, and then it would open like a catalog of every single VS Code theme would be applicable to GitLab. So that would be cool. And it would be doable, right? Because like the theme, like how a theme is set up in VS Code is just like how's it called?
Just give it a bunch. Just give a bunch of
It's
X
just
values.
JSON. Yeah, it's just JSON, right? So we would potentially just need to
JSON with X values.
Yeah. So we would just need to have like an API to use like the JSON to our own code bits and pieces, and then that would be really cool.
Yeah, I can see how people would love that. But yeah, I mean, I would settle even for just sort of unifying all those colors, because technically we have like right now 1, 2, 3, 4 different colors or themes that you can set in GitLab, and they just don't know about each other at all.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you know, the natural progression of how GitLab was built. Like things were added here and there, and they're good enough, and then they just kind of got left as is. Yeah, and I think that's been the hard piece in general, is like, how do we justify coming back to things when we have to ultimately be like, oh yeah, this helps drive revenue in some way. Like I do think there's an argument to be made that the more that people love GitLab, they'll use it. But it's like, is it that the thing that makes GitLab sticky? I think it's something that makes it something beloved, but that's the hard part. Is I think people, let's say, stick to GitLab because they love CI/CD pipelines. They don't want to go back to Jenkins. They could live with the syntax highlighting theme not being their favorite, and that's what ends up selling our deal.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. That's kind of my worry too, that GitLab is like you know, like I actually do think that that's the better scenario if people do love it because the CI/CD pipelines and stuff like that. But I worry that a majority of our users are choosing it because, you know, the corporate kind of pushed it on them because it's, you know, it's good for company. They have one tool, you know, instead of a million other ones. And, you know, there's like all these, you know, good stuff about it, which is totally cool. But like, you know, like we could easily became like a Windows of CI/CD pipelines where, you know,
it's very true.
People, everybody hates it, but everybody uses it.
Yeah, you know, I agree with you. I carry that concern to an extent. I don't think we've reached that level yet.
No,
I can
I
definitely
mean,
say,
here,
coming
but
from a shop where like the tools were just given to you, I mean, we had TFS, we had GitHub, we had GitLab, we had Azure, we had a ton of tools as options. And time again, our teams came back to GitLab because it was the most efficient tool to just get stuff done instead of dealing with having to request a bunch of licenses, which is the story you hear our sales team talk about all the time.
yeah,
Because people
absolutely.
want to write code. They want to write code, build projects. They want to ship stuff, not deal with the headache of like, I got to get a Jenkins license. Now we got to set that up. And then we got to get it connected to TFS. And like, we know what that looks like. And oh, we can't set up these automatic triggers to go to our Mattermost channel. And it's like those things, I think over time, it's like, no, just give us GitLab. Like we don't want to really use anything else. Like even if it's not the
Yeah,
perfect
no,
tool for us,
I
it's
agree
the
with
least
you.
annoying enterprise headache.
But I also am a big believer into like a smoothing the corners and make, you know, the tool be real pleasure to use it. And I think,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
so you're talking to people the same way. Like we're trying to find ways to bring smoothing into the platform all the time. Sasha's definitely rounded some corners lately. So yeah, if you're noticing some of our containers look a little more rounded than usual, thanks Sasha for that. But yeah, we're definitely trying to find that visual refinement because I think there's still some opportunity left on the table, which is what we were trying to chase down.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I
So
think
if you
there's
guys,
definitely more we could go down further. We
yeah,
just didn't want to do like, oh, let's completely destroy this context and let's reorganize these elements. It's like, let's just try and make what we have a little bit better, and then we'll figure out where to go from there. So I think where this leads us is a good spot. We've got a couple POCs that are pretty healthy right now. We'll see how far you can get it to Moss this week. We're happy to help jump in. I'll continue kind of chasing down like what's going to be my test for this stuff. I'll keep you guys posted.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Cool.
Catch you later.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.